I paid $22,000 for my daughter's engagement party. A week later, she told me I make everything about myself. So I did by canceling everything. The flowers, the catering, the band. Every single thing she thought would impress her fiancé's rich family. When she called me screaming, I simply said, "I thought you didn't want me involved." Now everyone says I overreacted. Maybe I did. But let me tell you how we got there. It started with a phone call on a quiet Sunday afternoon in Savannah. The kind of warm spring day when the air smells like honeysuckle and regret. I was watering the hydrangeas in my yard when my daughter Rachel called. "Mom," she said, her voice all sugar and excitement. "I have the best news. David proposed last night." For a moment, the years fell away. I could still see her as a little girl running barefoot in our backyard, holding a daisy chain she called a wedding crown. I laughed and said, "Well, it's about time. You've only been together 4 years." Rachel giggled. "He wanted it to be perfect." And it was. "You'll love the ring." Of course. I was thrilled. I'd been waiting for this moment, maybe more than she had. After my husband Paul died, Rachel became my whole world. I used to picture walking her down the aisle myself if I had to. Because she deserved a beautiful future. That night, she came over for dinner with David. He's a kind man, steady, respectful, a little quiet. While I set the table, Rachel showed me photos of a venue she'd found online times, the Magnolia Hall, *, a place where rich families host magazine-worthy events. "Mom, imagine string lights, champagne, live jazz, everything elegant but modern," she said, eyes sparkling. "This party has to be unforgettable." I smiled, but felt a twinge of concern. How unforgettable are we talking? "Sweetheart." Rachel hesitated, then slid a paper toward me. "About 25,000. But that includes the venue, catering, flowers, everything. I already talked to the manager. And they'll hold the date if we make a deposit this week." That was fast. Too fast. "Rachel," I said carefully, "that's a lot of money for one evening." She grinned. "Mom, it's not just any evening. It's the start of our future. Besides, it's not just for me, it's for the whole family. A way to celebrate us." There was something about how she said times that made my chest tighten. Still, I nodded. "Let me think about it." Over dessert, David thanked me for dinner and joked about how Rachel was already planning the seating chart. I noticed he didn't look entirely comfortable with her enthusiasm. When they left, my friend Janet called. "So, you're hosting the royal engagement," she teased. I chuckled. "Don't start." She just showed me the plans. "Careful, hon," Janet said. "Big events turn small hearts ugly. Don't let her walk over you." I brushed it off. She's my daughter. Janet, it's her time to shine. By Wednesday, Rachel came by again, this time all business. "Mom." I talked to the florist, the caterer, and the event planner. They need deposits by Friday to hold the date. I frowned. "Already?" "Mom," she said, lowering her voice. "I know it's a lot to ask, but David's parents are helping with the rehearsal dinner. So it's only fair you handle this. You've always said you wanted my day to be perfect." That was true. I had said that many times, and her tone, sweet but sharp, made it sound less like a request and more like a confirmation. So, I wrote the checks one after another. By Friday, $22,000 had left my account. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the receipts. The numbers didn't scare me. What did was how easily I'd done it. A few days later, Rachel texted me times, "Can you swing by the boutique tomorrow? We're picking the floral arrangements. When I arrived, she was surrounded by planners and assistants, all fussing over color palettes. Mom. I'm thinking blush tones with gold accents. Timeless. Right. Beautiful. I said, running my fingers over the catalog pages. One of the planners smiled at me. You must be so proud. Rachel said you insisted on the best. I looked at my daughter. Did she now? Rachel flashed a quick smile. You know how people talk. It's just easier if they think it's your idea. That night, something uneasy sat heavy in my stomach. The next weekend, I hosted a small dinner to celebrate the engagement privately. Just family. During dessert, Rachel started talking about her party guest list, over 100 people, including David's colleagues, old college friends, and a few social connections. When I asked if she'd invited any of our extended family, she waved a manicured hand. Oh, Mom, you know how your side gets. They'll just make it feel provincial. I nearly dropped my fork. Provincial. Not like that, she said quickly. I just want the vibe to be elegant. You understand? I didn't. Not really. But I smiled anyway. Because that's what mothers do. A week later, I was sipping coffee on my porch when her text came through. Asterisk, Mom. David and I talked. And we think it's best if you take a step back from the planning. You tend to make everything about yourself. And we really want this to reflect our style. I read it twice. Then a third time. Everything about times myself. After $22,000, after months of listening, helping, and paying, I called her immediately. But she didn't pick up. I left a message. Rachel, I need to understand what that means. No response. That night, I sat alone in my living room. The house quiet except for the ticking clock. I looked around at the photos, her graduation, her first job, her smile next to mine in every frame. For the first time in years, I felt like a stranger in my own story. And that's when it hit me. If my daughter didn't want me involved, she wouldn't have to worry about me being in the way. She'd worry about what happens when I'm times gone, times from it entirely. The morning after that text, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone. The little red receipt under my voicemail told me Rachel had listened. But she hadn't called back. I kept hoping I'd get a message that said, Sorry, Mom. That came out wrong. But nothing came. By noon, I decided to stop waiting and start understanding. I opened my laptop and checked my emails. There were invoices from vendors I didn't recognize, updated flower orders, upgraded menus. A live jazz trio added to the contract. Each one said, approved by Rachel Harris. The total cost now, $31,000. My hands went cold. I called the venue. Magnolia Hall. The coordinator, a polite woman named Marlene, picked up. Mrs. Harris, I just sent over the new floor plan your daughter requested. New floor plan, I said. Oh yes. She chirped. She added another bar area and requested an upgraded light package. It's going to be stunning. I'm sure it will, I said evenly. Can you remind me whose name the contract is under? Well, yours. Of course. Mrs. Harris. All payments have been processed from your account. When I hung up, my heart was pounding so hard it hurt. She had used my name and money to change everything. No discussion. No respect. I called Janet. You were right, I said. She sighed. Oh. Honey. What did she do now? She's spending like I won the lottery, and apparently, I'm too controlling to be involved, but not too controlling to pay for it. Janet was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You know, Linda, sometimes The only way to teach a grown child respect is to let them feel the cost of their choices. That night, I drove to Rachel's house. She opened the door wearing a silk robe, holding a glass of wine. Her house looked like something out of a magazine, sleek, expensive, cold. "Mom, you didn't have to come by," she said, smiling like she was entertaining a guest. "I needed to talk," I said, stepping inside. "About the engagement party." She groaned softly. "Oh God. Please don't make this a thing." "It's already a thing, Rachel," I said. "You told me to step back. Remember?" She rolled her eyes. "Mom, that text wasn't meant to be harsh. You just tend to overdo things. David and I want this to feel our age, not old-fashioned." "Old-fashioned," I repeated slowly. "You know what I mean," she said, sitting on the couch. "You just like to take over. And I didn't want any drama." "Drama," I felt my jaw tighten. "Rachel, the only drama I've caused is paying for a party I'm apparently too embarrassing to be part of." Her cheeks flushed. "That's not fair. You offered to pay." "No," I said. You asked. You planned. And then you told me to stay out of it." She waved a hand. "Mom, you're reading too much into this. I just wanted something that feels like me." I looked around her pristine living room, all glass and white furniture. No warmth. "I'm starting to think I don't know who you is anymore." "Don't be dramatic," she muttered. The word hit me like a slap. Asterisk, dramatic. Asterisk. The same word men used to silence women for centuries. I stood up. "Enjoy your evening." "Rachel." "Mom. Don't make this." I closed the door behind me before she could finish. When I got home, I poured myself a cup of tea and sat in the quiet. Paul would have known what to say. He was patient, but firm. He used to tell me, "You can't fix entitlement, Linda. You can only stop funding it." By midnight, I knew exactly what I was going to do. The next morning, I called Magnolia Hall again. "This is Linda Harris," I said. "I'd like to confirm my rights regarding cancellation." Marlene hesitated. "Cancellation, but the event is 2 weeks away." "I understand," I said calmly. "I just want to know if I, as the contract holder, can make that decision." "You can," she said reluctantly. "There would be some non-refundable deposits. But yes, it's your contract." "Thank you," I said. "That's all I needed." Then I called the florist, the caterer, and the band, each one confirming the same thing. Everything was in my name. Every payment came from my checks. By afternoon, I had a folder full of receipts and contracts neatly labeled on my dining table. The proof that this entire spectacle existed because of me and could stop because of me. That evening, I received a voicemail from Rachel. "Mom, David's parents are hosting a brunch this weekend. Please behave." "Okay, I don't want any awkwardness." Behave. As if I were some unruly child. When Saturday came, I went to the brunch out of sheer curiosity. Rachel floated around in a pale blue dress, introducing me to everyone like I was a distant relative. "This is my mom," she said with a tight smile. "She's been helping with the engagement details." Asterisk, helping. I smiled at the table of strangers, my polite mask perfectly intact. Helping is one word for it. Her future mother-in-law, a perfectly coiffed woman named Patricia, leaned closer. "Rachel tells us you're funding the entire event. How generous." I smiled again, sipping my mimosa. "Well, it's important to know where your money's going." Rachel's smile faltered just slightly. When we got back to her house, she confronted me. "Mom, what was that supposed to mean?" It means, I said calmly, that generosity requires gratitude, and I haven't seen much of that lately. She sighed. Frustrated. Mom, please. You're blowing this out of proportion. You always make things about you. There it was again. That sentence. Like a dagger dressed in politeness. I nodded slowly. You're right. Rachel, I do make things about me. I smiled faintly. And I think it's time I keep it that way. When I got home that evening, I opened the folder one more time, checking every detail. The contracts, the phone numbers, the payments, and then I picked up the phone. Hi. Marlene. This is Linda Harris again. Yes. I'd like to cancel the event scheduled for the 15th. Effective immediately. There was a long pause. Mrs. Harris, are you sure? Very sure. I said. If anyone asks, just tell them the client withdrew. Then I called the caterer. Cancel the menu. The florist. Cancel the arrangements. The band. Cancel the performance. By sunset, every call was done. Every email sent. $22,000 gone, but peace bought in return. That night, I sat on my porch, watching the last light fade from the sky. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel angry. I just felt done. And as the crickets started singing, I whispered to myself, you don't want me involved. Rachel, you got your wish. The morning of the engagement party dawned bright and humid, the kind of southern heat that makes everything feel heavier. I sat at my kitchen table, sipping coffee and staring at the clock. 10 o'clock. By now, the caterers should have been unloading trays of canapés at Magnolia Hall. The florist should have been arranging roses. The band should have been tuning their instruments. Instead, everything was still, silent, peaceful. My phone started buzzing before I'd even finished my coffee. Rachel's name lit up the screen. I didn't answer. She called again. Then again. By the 5th call, I picked up. Mom, the venue said everything's canceled. What the hell did you do? I kept my voice calm. Oh. That's strange. I thought you didn't want me involved. You ruined it, she screamed. Do you have any idea how this looks? Everyone's showing up, there's nothing here. I set my mug down and said softly, then maybe next time. You'll remember that respect is part of every celebration. She hung up. By noon, my phone was full of missed calls from her. From David. Even from his mother. I didn't answer any of them. I turned the ringer off and went to tend my garden. The roses were blooming again. Pink and perfect. Untouched by anyone's expectations. That evening, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Rachel was standing there. Mascara running. Dress wrinkled. Her voice cracking between anger and shame. Why would you do this to me? She whispered. Because you already did it to yourself. I said. You took my love, my money, and my trust. And you turned them into props for your image. I just stopped paying for the performance. She stared at me for a long time. Tears welling in her eyes. I just wanted you to be proud of me. I've always been proud of you, I said quietly. But pride isn't the same as approval. I wanted you to be kind, not impressive. She broke, then really broke, sobbing into her hands. Her shoulders shaking like she was 10 years old again. I put my hand on her back and let her cry. Because sometimes, the lesson isn't in the punishment. It's in the silence that follows. A week later, Rachel came by again. No makeup. No fancy clothes. Just jeans and humility. She sat across from me and said, Mom, I'm sorry. I was trying to prove something.